Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ, down there in Tequila, Georgia. My good friend and fellow University of North Georgia alumni is here, Matt Green. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It is good to be back with you, talking college football. The season's still going on, but it feels like the off season now after the conference championship, seeing all the portal and new coaches and all this crazy stuff. But yeah, we'll still stay focused on the 2023 season as much as we can.
Absolutely. I mean, it does really feel like the off season. I mean, we'll see what happens with bowl season for Tennessee, if it's Nico time, and that'll be cool. But it just kind of feels like bowl season's now not really a part of the season. It used to feel like the end goal, the end capper, It still felt like it was part of the season. Now with the portal, so many early enrollees practicing for the month, guys opting out for the draft, coaching changes. I mean, it just doesn't feel like the same year. And I think this year it's going to be pretty crazy just based on the number of portal guys and how many portal quarterbacks are out there. I'm not going to lie, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, Matt Green, but it kind of bums me out when I'm looking at some of these games and I'm like, because I looked at the calendar and I was like, okay, who's going to be quarterback in this game? Who's going to be, who's coaching this game because this coach is gone? It's all very strange. I mean, last year, didn't Fickle coach Wisconsin in the bowl game?
Oh, yeah, he did.
Is that what's going to start happening? They're just going to put the new coaches with these staffs?
I guess. Are you going to put the new players on the new team? You might we got to field a roster here. Imagine Brock Vandegrift is. I imagine he's not going to play in the Orange Bowl. He's going to Kentucky. There's no. You're done. You're not playing for Georgia anymore. So I don't know. I think I saw 1,100 players or something like that had entered the portal as of Monday. I'm not sure what it's up to now, but yeah, I think the first game that did it for me in terms of bowl season was Oklahoma, Florida a couple years ago. That it was just Oklahoma, Florida in a bowl game. This is awesome. And it's yeah, none of the guys are going to play. This is that was when the realization, that wasn't the first game or anything, but that was the realization was man, bowl games really do just kind of suck now. I know when they're on my TV, I'm going to watch them because it's December and I'm not really sure what else is on other than Christmas movies and bowl games. I feel like that's the time of the season. The only reason you'll watch the Belk Bowl or something like that. But yeah, it's I think there's a little bit of a crisis going on and how we kind of keep all those bowls alive with how crazy this portal's gotten.
The portal is quite wild, and we'll see what ultimately happens here. And I mean, we're on Seton watch here, Matt Green.
And speaking of Debbie Downer, I'm with you. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but it's I can't even get excited. Oh, Juice Wells visiting Tennessee. Oh man, I get excited for recruiting. Oh, this big 5 stars official visit. I can't keep track of both. I can't keep track. It's I guess this isn't necessarily NFL fans feel with the draft and free agency. It's if you had the draft and free agency just both on steroids, 10 times the number of players in free agency. And then the draft, you're not actually limited to how many guys you can get. Who knows how many of the top 30 players one team can land. It's a different beast. But yeah, it's hard to even get excited. There's so many things happening. You see one guy in the portal, and you're just oh, you'll get excited about that. And then you see your guy jump into the portal, and then it's just, I don't know. It's an emotional roller coaster.
No, I mean, it is. We'll see what happens. I mean, we're taping this late on a Wednesday, and then sometime tomorrow, 5-star offensive tackle and number 1 tackle in the class will be announcing with, it looks like Tennessee is the leader going into tomorrow, but I mean, that would have the number 1 quarterback last year, number 1 offensive tackle this year, put probably Tennessee in the 5 to 7 range in this 2024 class. It's a huge day. All Tennessee, it's actually kind of amazing how unnerving all of this is this week with that one, because that's the final big fish.
And I'm a Georgia fan, so I don't even know what this is about, right?
Yeah.
We're not losing starting quarterbacks in the portal. Georgia's, I think it lost Nyland Green, and I'm not sure. Is Vandergrift probably the next best one? That it's just like, oh man, I was thinking that guy could be good for us one day, you know. Like other schools are having like their breakout wide receiver, like, all right, peace. Like AD Mitchell left a year ago. Like that was a pretty big high profile, and Bear Alexander too. But it's like Georgia is not nearly in the position that some of these schools are, where, you know, they're stepping stone. They're turning to stepping stone programs for guys to get some exposure and get to the big time. Like we've seen Wake Forest now produce a Notre Dame quarterback, and who knows, maybe Duke just produced another Notre Dame quarterback if that's where Riley Leonard ends up. So I don't know. It's definitely crazy. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but it's hard to keep up with it all.
Absolutely. Well, we're not going to do that on this edition of the program. We'll have a transfer portal theme episode here. Probably a recruiting one too during the offseason, but we still got time for that. There's a whole lot of not football going on, Matt Green, once the bowl season and the college football playoff wrap up. But before we get into that, we want to take a break here on this weekday show here because, look, you know, it's a long season, long grind, a lot of previews to do. Many forget that I won the Pick'em once again this year as the main college football knower on this very program, as you so kindly described it before we jumped into today's podcast. Is just something to make sure the listeners were keenly aware of Matt Green each and every week on this program when they go into next year and thinking about picks and who to listen to more. And, you know, which side to err on. So I appreciate you reminding me over that.
As long as you're not talking Tennessee, because apparently you just say things when you're talking Tennessee, whether you believe them or not.
That's not it. It's just there's something that feels nasty about betting against Tennessee against Georgia. Like the rivals, like
if they win and you didn't pick them, it's like, well, you didn't have faith in your team, bro. What's going on? That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I know people that can bet against their team. That is one of the more insane things.
Yeah.
There's no way, because you never bet against Georgia, right? Or the Braves, have you?
No, I would never bet against them. I mean, I don't think they're going to win every game, but yeah, I would just not bet rather than bet against my team.
Bad for the soul. Never do that, folks. Don't bet against your team. Don't bet against your guys, all that kind of stuff.
A couple years ago, me and my buddy, when one of my friends' bachelor party was in Vegas, me and another one of my friends, I put in a bet in for Georgia to win the national championship. He put a bet in for the Braves to win the World Series, and we both cashed that shit, man. It was a big time. Last year it was fun to bet on Georgia, really, in 2021 when they were like a 10-1 favorite. It hadn't been as fun the last couple of years.
Well, next year might be fun again because you're not going to be the champ. You won't be the favored team. I don't know who the favorite.
But you know they're going to come in at like 4-1 at like absolute like worst. Like they're going to be preseason top 3, 4, something like that.
Yeah,
but like 10-1. I'm not sure you're going to see Georgia that high again for a while.
No, probably not. Probably not. But we're going to do a burning questions themed episode here on the Pod Divided with Philly University of North Georgia alumni Matt Green here. Matt, we have I put together some questions that I thought would be fun to just kind of parse through our pick'em, or parse through our post pick'em podcast. And what I wanted to start with here, because we got a lot of different things we're going to bounce around. I think this could be a fun exercise and kind of pick your brain and see where you're at on some of this stuff and see where we agree, where we disagree on some of this. But some burning college football questions that I've been thinking about a lot over the last day, last week, last couple of weeks. And I think we start with the most, the most time sensitive, which is the college football playoff, because that is still something that pertains to this college football season, Matt Green. So I ask you, burning question number 1, should Alabama be considered the CFP favorite winner? And if not, who do you consider the favorite going into the Final Four here in a couple weeks?
Well, bottom line, until the Big Ten can beat the SEC in the college football playoff, like, I'm taking the SEC. Like, Michigan has looked really good this year, but I mean, even with even with how dominant they've been, like I still have my reservations on how good JJ McCarthy and that offense really is. That it feels like Alabama, Michigan, and obviously we have a lot of time to get into that game, but it feels like that those are two teams that are going to be kind of struggling on offense and two dominant defenses. So I tend to just trust that Alabama's going to have better athletes than Michigan. As good as many NFL players and prospects that Michigan has on this year's team. And I think that offensive lineman that's out that got hurt in the Ohio State game, like I think that could be a pretty big, a pretty big miss for Michigan in that game. So I think until proven otherwise, Alabama is probably the favorite, but I mean, it's so hard to beat somebody twice, but I'm not convinced that they're actually a better team than Texas. Like I think Texas is still, obviously no one's giving Washington any shot right now, but I think Texas feels like the most complete team of this group to me, but it's hard to pick against Alabama. Saban's 9-4 in the college football playoff. These three teams combined are 0-3. And obviously, Texas this is their first appearance ever.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's interesting you went to the Big Ten first, about them showing you. It does kind of feel like, I don't know if you've gotten the sense nationally and you talking to your buddies and stuff like that. Has anyone been like, yeah, the number one seeds should be the favorite? Because it's very strange that, I mean, I still would give them better odds than Washington. I don't think Washington has a chance. I think the defense is too rough. Not in the blue chip ratio. Love Michael Penix. Love what they've done to this point.
The defense looked pretty good against Oregon, man. That Oregon offense is no joke.
No, for sure. I think it's very unlikely that Washington beats Texas and or Bama / Michigan in succession. I think that's asking a lot, especially beating Oregon before beating Oregon twice. Like that's a special season that I'm just gonna, like, an all-time great season. Like we may never see just a run like that from a college football team, especially a college football team that has a roster as ever matches Washington did in a lot of those games, but just elite receiver and quarterback play, driving them some good corners, like you said, and stuff like that. But I don't know, like, does anyone, to bring it back to Michigan in the Big Ten, do you know anyone, like, do you get the sense, isn't it kind of weird that Michigan is the number one seed and we would all kind of be surprised if they won the national title?
Not only because it's Alabama. Like Alabama it's a different brand. It's like everyone just believes Nick Saban's gonna get it done. But I think, people might hear us talk about Alabama and kind of we're biased and we're reluctant to change our opinion that we had about Alabama, but I still feel like they're a flawed team. Like they don't have a consistent running game. It's a lot of Jalen Milroe, go see what you can make happen offensively. And he's not a superstar. He's an amazing athlete, but they just kind of find ways to win every single game they play. And this defense is legit. Like it might not be the best defense in college football, but it's up there. It's one of the best. So it's going to be on the back of the defense that wins this. But I think when I just look at Michigan, obviously they've had a dominant defense all year long too. I think those Ohio State and Penn State games kind of open people's eyes that, like, those are the two good teams they've played, and they didn't dominate. They won the games. They were better than those teams, but they're scoring 24 points in both of those games, 27 points, something like that. With 30-24, is that what the Ohio State Michigan
yes.
was? But their offense just hasn't been dominant. So you look at how good Alabama's defense is. It's like, would it shock you at all if they held that Michigan offense to 10 points? Like, I mean, not really, at least under 20. So I think it's going to be a physical game. I think it's hard for me, and it's not the 2021 team. It's not the 2022 team, but it's hard to get that image out of your head of Georgia absolutely smacking this team around 2 years ago in the playoff, after they won the SEC, and seeing TCU hang 50 on them, a team that a lot of people didn't think even belonged. And that was also a dominant Michigan defense statistically. So it's hard to know exactly what you're getting out of that Big Ten champion each year, because they've had some kind of bad showings at times in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I think all that's fair. I have some Michigan stats for you. You ready?
Hit me.
So JJ McCarthy is a big big question mark for me. And part of that stems from, non-conference games for JJ McCarthy this year. He's played 3. 7 TDs, 4 picks, 10.2 yards per attempt. But 4 picks, only 7 TDs against the non-conference schedule for them. Against unranked teams, 20 TDs, 5 picks, 9.6 yards per attempt, completed 73% of his passes. Against ranked teams, Matt Green, he's played 3 of them this year, completing 78% of his passes. Good.
Who's the third one?
Wait, what's that again?
Who's the third ranked team? Oh, Iowa?
Yes, Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah. 6.6 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 0 picks. He's thrown 1 TD against a ranked team this year.
Wow.
Against FBS winning teams this year, just winning teams, he's played in 6 of those games. 5 TDs, 5 picks, 8.0 yards per attempt. I don't trust. I just, there's something off about the Michigan offense to me. And I just don't trust them to be able to beat Alabama and Texas in back-to-back games. I don't think they have the firepower to be able to pull that off. And it's kind of wild that they're just the number 1 seed and they're undefeated going in here. But I don't know. I don't feel it for them. And I think it really comes down to me, Texas and Alabama. Like, I think it would be a monumental upset if it's not one of those 2 teams. And I don't even think it's a Big Ten issue. I just think Ohio State the last couple of years and last year with CJ Stroud playing at a Heisman level, like there's a reason that he went number 2 in the draft this past year, or 2 or 3. What did he go? 2 or 3. I forgot which one, because Will Anderson
Stroud?
also.
Stroud was, oh yeah, you're right. I don't know either. I think it was 3.
I think, 3 we'll go with 3. It's either 2 or 3.
I'll look it up.
But he's an NFL player. Like, he's balling as a rookie in Houston, and he was a special guy and was able to push Georgia in a different kind of way.
Number 2.
He went 2.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think JJ McCarthy's that guy. There's a reason he's not being mocked in the top 3 of the draft next year. He comes out after this year. Like, he's fine. But I just don't think he's that it guy. I mean, if you remove the 5-star label to him, I think he's better than Cade McNamara. The upside's a little bit more, but I don't know. My gut just tells me that this Michigan offense is not going to be able to do enough against 2 very, very scary, dominant fronts in Alabama and Texas for the Wolverines to be able to do it.
He's definitely
Ohio
better
State team can.
He's definitely better than Cade McNamara, but I'm with you. I mean, I just saw this Alabama team hold Georgia's offense to 24 points. Like, this Georgia offense has been significantly more explosive and dynamic than Michigan all year long. So I think if they can hold Georgia to 24 points, like, I can see Alabama winning this game with like 17, 20 points or something like that. Like, I think this is going to be a game that's low scoring.
Yeah, no, I agree. The final thing I'll say on the Bama part of all of this is that, like, it's funny, doesn't it seem like there's this like cliche in sports. I don't think it's just a college football thing, but there's a cliche that it's hard to beat a team twice, right? And then you see teams do it. Utah beat USC multiple times last year. You see the Pac-12 champ has beaten the team previously in the season more often than not. We just saw it again with Washington, Oregon. So we just hear this narrative that, look, we like Texas. Texas is really good, but it's going to be hard to beat Alabama twice. What if it's not? What if Alabama is just not a good matchup for Texas, and Texas just does what they did in Tuscaloosa all over again in the national title? The national title will be in Houston. It'll have a home game feel for the Longhorns, I think.
Well, Alabama fans are going to travel. Like, it's a national championship. It'll be a neutral site. It could be 60-40 or something. But last time it was in Bryant-Denny Stadium. So that's a pretty big equalizer for a team you already beat by 10 points.
For sure. And look, I don't know. I just think that's something to monitor here, because a lot of people have just penciled that in as a bad matchup. I think the favorite for me is Texas. I'd feel better if Brooks was healthy, the running back, but Quinn Ewers is playing some really good football here. They're rolling at the right time. Love that defensive line. They're going to be able to match Bama in the trenches. I like their receivers more than Bama's. I just think they're a better matchup.
Adonai Mitchell, all he
Hmm?
does is catch touchdowns in college football playoff games. So he's played in 4 of them, won every one of them, and caught a touchdown in every one of them.
Do you know what I was also thinking about today? That would be the most just. I don't even want to put this out in the atmosphere, Matt Green, but do you remember what happened the last time Texas and Alabama played in the national title?
Oh, yeah. Colt McCoy going down, first series of the game.
Do you know what? I mean, Quinn Ewers not exactly the healthiest quarterback.
Now, don't you put that out there. That's what happened the last time Alabama played Texas, period.
Yeah,
When Ewers got hurt.
Can you imagine if that happened again in the national title? Quinn gets knocked out by Dallas Turner.
No, that
early.
would be don't even put that out there.
It's in the back of my mind.
You got to get by Washington first. I think Washington is a really interesting matchup. Like I love how these matchups came out because it's like the two same styles facing each other. Like both of the two big time defensive teams are facing each other. Then you got Texas and Washington, more offensive, more dynamic passing attacks. Like Washington is not a bad, like Texas is not a bad matchup for Washington. Like as good as Texas is, like I think you've seen teams with worse offenses than Washington give Texas problems at times. And Michael Penix Jr., like these receivers, like their receivers are at full strength right now. We saw how good they looked a week ago against Oregon. Like I'm definitely not ruling out Washington winning that game. I've said they feel like TCU, like the TCU Michigan thing, like that kind of feeds into it. Like everyone's going to be picking Texas to win this game because it feels like Texas is like the most complete team, like blue chip ratio, all of that type stuff. But I wouldn't rule out what one quarterback and a couple wide receivers can the way they can change a game. And we've seen Washington's running attack in recent weeks too just be really dangerous. So don't sleep on the Huskies.
No, I don't disagree. We'll see. We'll see, Matt Green. Next up, something right down your alley, following the Dogs going down in Atlanta to Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide once again. My question to you, burning question number 2, is the UGA Dynasty over? Is the 2024 schedule that got released today, leaked today, influencing that feeling, whether or not you're kind of a little bit more nervous about it going into next year? And then your biggest unanswered question going into the offseason that you would like to see answered for Georgia.
So you're loving this, aren't you? You've been waiting a long time for Georgia to lose a football game. I can tell you're enjoying not just talking about another Bulldog win every time we get on the podcast.
I will say it would have felt sweeter if it was Tennessee. Like Bama doing it doesn't actually move the needle for me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how many like listening to. I actually brought myself to listen to Chris Marler's podcast this week. And it's funny how many calls they got from Georgia fans that were like, this is the golden era of Georgia football. We just really appreciate what we've done these last 3 years. And he's just like, he's getting pissed off because like Georgia fans aren't as salty as he was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of just like, yeah, this is incredible. Like they're 41-2 in the last 3 seasons, like won 2 national championships. Like I was telling you a week ago, like this thing, it didn't even register like top 5 on toughest losses. Like the Tennessee Hail Mary was probably like a more gut wrenching loss at that time, obviously bigger stakes in this game, but Georgia's won so much in recent years. I don't know that Georgia, like, is Georgia a dynasty period? Were they ever called a dynasty? Like winning back to back, I feel like you always needed like 3 championships to win a dynasty. I don't know if that's a thing, but I think that's kind of what was always called a dynasty. Maybe back to back is a dynasty, but whatever you want to call Georgia, like this run is not coming anywhere close to an end. Like if Carson Beck's coming back next year, like this team could very well be preseason number 1, like next year. Like they're going to be loaded. 6 of the last 7 years, Georgia has not lost more than 1 regular season game. So it's I think you're going to see more of the same. Like this 2024 schedule, it's absolutely brutal. Like that's going to be a game. So to answer your first question, I don't know that everyone considers Georgia a dynasty, period. But I mean, where Georgia's program is right now, I don't think it's going anywhere. So the reason, if we're going back to Alabama's dynasty being dead thing, it's because they had an unprecedented run of dominance for a certain period of time. I've said here multiple times, I'm sure people would throw that in my face, like, oh, I thought you said the dynasty was dead. They're going to win another national championship. Like, LSU won a national championship in 2019. They were not a dynasty. You don't have to be a dynasty to pop up and win a championship every 3 years. Like, I mean, it's just Nick Saban is still a dominant coach. They're still a great program, but it's not a dynasty, in my opinion. This feels like an overachieving team, a great story, a great coaching job by Nick Saban, and it could be a national championship team, but that just doesn't make it a dynasty, in my opinion. Maybe we're splitting hairs, but that's my definition of dynasty. So, what were you going to say?
Well, I just think part of it is not even Georgia's fault, and I'm letting Georgia off the hook here a little bit, but the 12-team playoff is just going to make it so much harder. The schedule that you look at for 2024 for Georgia, it looks like 2 losses to me. And that doesn't even mean Georgia's going to have a down year. Georgia could be just as good as this past year and lose 2 games. It's just a really at Texas and at Bama in a regular season, it's just going to be brutal. Those 2 teams might be the best 2 teams in the SEC again next year. I don't know. I just think it's going to be really, really difficult. There's going to be a lot more volatility there, and it's just going to promote more, not necessarily when parity has been thrown around for the expanded playoff. I think people have taken and run with that as oh, well, then you're going to, the G5s or the smaller Power 5 schools are going to have more of an opportunity. We're going to see more of this. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think there's going to be parity amongst the SEC. So I think you'll see the number 3 team in the SEC.
And I think that's what people really mean when they talk about parity, because no one's really talking about the bottom half of college football.
Or not even the bottom half, the 4th team in the Big Ten, the 2nd team in the ACC.
But when I say bottom half, I mean the 70th to 130th team in college football. No one's actually talking about. We're talking about the teams in the Power 5, the top 25 teams. There will be more parity, I think, among those.
Yeah, I think so. So I just think it's going to be hard for anyone to have a dynasty. I think Georgia is actually going to end up being the last of a dying breed in terms of what's realistic. And I think college football fans are going to have to brace what success is in modern college football. I think the hardest thing that college football fans are going to have to get over is wins and losses, because I think you're going to see more of your favorite team lose more games in the regular season and that not matter as much as it used to, where you lose one game and you're like, oh, are we now out of the playoff? Is our season over? You're going to have to get more used to 8-4 and then going on a run in the SEC and then potentially still being able to win a national championship. That doesn't mean your season's over.
And it feels like college football didn't need that.
Yeah. But do you agree with what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Because, I mean, it's the NBA needed oh, yeah, your team's out of it. We need a reason to try to get fans excited. In-season tournament, no one knows what the hell's going on. Let's try to do something in these regular season games. It's Clemson, South Carolina. It doesn't matter what those teams' records are. At the end of the year, the fans are going to be packed out, and it's going to be a huge game, So I feel like there wasn't really that need to increase oh, we've lost 1 game. Oh, no, we've lost 2 games. We're still a playoff team. We're still going to come out and support our team. College football fans are a different breed. They're going to be there regardless. A lot of them will. Some of them won't. Miami fans won't be there regardless. But I think you look at what the format is right now, and I don't know. I think I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with it. I'm still curious how the 12-team playoff is going to look. I think from the parity perspective, I think it's going to be a little like the NCAA tournament. You're still going to see teams go back to back. It's crazy what Georgia's done these last couple of years, but we've seen dominant teams throughout history. You're going to see teams go back to back again. It might be harder, but the best teams in these 12-team format, the best team's still going to win more times than not. Because I think in football, it's not like other sports. I think the best team wins more often. We're not talking about baseball and having a expanded postseason or something like that. So I think there is still that, but I think there could be an element like NCAA tournament, you're willing to go to a smaller school that has a better chance to get into the tournament or something like that. You're willing to go to that third team in the ACC and the third team in the Big Ten or something, because that's actually a way that you could get into the playoff and get some exposure. And so it kind of makes more teams attractive transfer portal like destinations. But I don't know. There's a lot of ways it could go for sure.
I agree. Matt Green, sneaky, or not even sneaky, burning question number 3. I'll get your perspective here first. Is year 4 a sneaky huge year for Josh Heupel? What should the expectation be for the most reasonable fans and the administration at Tennessee? And how has your opinion of Tennessee evolved over the last 3 years?
Well, to answer your first question, I think it is, like you would say, a sneaky huge year for Josh Heupel, because he's not under, we're going to get to the SEC hot seat type talk. He's not under hot seat pressure, but he's under a different kind of pressure. He's under double-digit win pressure, you know? Mm. And that's a little bit different than, yeah, you have a bad season, you're going to get fired. Like, it's like there's a feeling to it of like you can have a good season, but is how good is good enough type of thing to be under less pressure going into 2025 or something. So I think he definitely is under pressure. And you look at Tennessee had what 4 or 5 senior offensive linemen this past year. I think Cooper Mays is coming back. Is that right?
A lot of guys are coming back. So John Campbell's back. He's going to use his 7th year of eligibility to start at left tackle for the Vols next year. We'll see on Minty at the right tackle spot, but I mean, it's going to be, at least for right now, and we'll see what happens with Jordan Seaton, because he's probably a day 1 starter at right tackle if he commits tomorrow. But I would say right now it's Campbell at left. We'll see at left guard. That's an opening. Center, Cooper. Right, Spraggins will be back, it looks like. And then right tackle we'll also see. But tight end, you lose both. You lose McCallum Castles and Jacob Bourne.
But they had 9 seniors on the defensive side. And I don't know how many of those guys can potentially.
Yeah, Keenan Peely's back.
But you also got to wonder, like, if some of these guys are 6-year seniors or so, it's like, you know, you kind of don't want guys that are around that long. You want guys that are 3 and trying to get to the NFL, or 4 and they're NFL players. So that could be a good thing, the experience, the continuity, but I don't know. So I don't know how many of those seniors they actually lose on defense, but I think they're definitely under a lot of pressure, because like we talked about a year ago, like they're not in a position yet to where it's just like, oh, okay, there's like 9-10 wins we can circle. And then there's these toss-up games against Alabama and Georgia. Like there's still a lot of toss-up games for Tennessee, and like their schedule probably isn't as tough as Georgia's next year. Kind of talking about, but I mean, it might be. Like, you still got to go at Georgia. You still got to go who is at Oklahoma. You got Alabama, Florida, Kentucky at home. Go at Arkansas. Like, I mean, I don't know that Arkansas isn't going to be a good team next year. Like we've seen, you know, we've seen different things from this team in the last couple of years. So, and then NC State, I mean, that's probably a win in the neutral site, but you know, I don't know. You're breaking in a freshman quarterback, like a first-year starter. Like, we don't really know what the floor is yet for Tennessee. Like this, we don't know that this team isn't a 7-5 team next year. Like, I mean, we don't know that for a fact, do we? I mean, they went 8-4 this year.
I mean, they're going to be a lot better. There's an infusion. This is a gap year. 7-5 is, I mean, 7-5.
No, that's worst case scenario for sure. But I don't know for a fact that they're.
I think worst case is 8-4. But this schedule.
And how are Tennessee feeling? How are Tennessee fans feeling with 8-4?
Everything comes down to context. I guess it depends on who they lose to. How Nico looks is probably a big part. It's like, is the offense back to number 4 in scoring? The defense is a little bit worse or something, and that's the 8-4. Nico goes through some redshirt freshman lumps, but you still see like future, like Heisman in 2025, then like you can live with it. I mean, you don't love it, but you can live with it. I think, to me, you talk about the schedule. I mean, NC State lost a bunch of guys in the portal. Like, they're having NIL problems. Like, they're going to beat NC State. I'm not worried about that one. I think the schedule is the second easiest in the SEC outside of Arkansas. I mean, you're going to be favored in at least 9 games here. You get Alabama back in Knoxville. That's huge. You get Florida at home. That's a big one you need in a toss-up type game, because they're just a totally different team in the swamp. At Arkansas, you'll be favored there. Not necessarily guaranteed win, but you'll be favored at Arkansas. At Georgia, you will not be favored, and that's probably the most likely loss there. And at Oklahoma, I mean, Heupel is going to be up for that game. Like, that is obviously his first time returning to Norman since coaching the Vols and all that stuff. So it's going to be a big game for him, important for him for a lot of reasons. We'll see. I mean, we'll see what Oklahoma looks like. They'll be bringing in a new quarterback too in Jackson Darnold. I don't know. I don't think the talent mismatch there is pretty huge. New offensive coordinators, co-coordinators with Seth Littrell and Joe John Finley, I think is his name. There with Levy taking the Mississippi State job. I don't know. This schedule to me, I think is very, very nice.
You left out those Kentucky Wildcats, man.
No, absolutely not. That's a guaranteed win, especially at home. No chance. Brock's not walking in Neyland Stadium getting a dub.
I don't know about that. We'll see. Kentucky, 2 of the last 3 years versus Heupel, they've played them 1-score games. Like, we'll see. It wasn't the 2 that were, or it wasn't one of the ones that was in Knoxville, but
no.
I won't. Hey, don't sleep on the Wildcats. Hey, we're
sleeping.
Do you guys play Missouri next year or
No.
like South Carolina?
Nope.
Okay.
No House of Horrors in South Carolina. No, they're gonna be okay.
Ducking Eli Drinkowitz. Tennessee's scared of that rivalry.
Okay. Next up, your personal favorite coaching hire thus far. Only a couple jobs left. Like Duke's still open. James Madison, and I want to say, I guess Tulane is the other one still open. But Matt Green, your favorite coaching hire this cycle, and why?
I would say if we're going like value, like expectations, like what you're capable of, like Indiana probably did the best. Like with Kurt Signetti, like it's just like, okay, I see Indiana like doing your thing, getting the next up and coming guy. But I think Michigan State with getting Jonathan Smith, that feels like, okay, that's a guy that Michigan State like could win a championship with. Like that's like, I'm not saying Michigan State should have that expectation, but this is a program that's been to a college football playoff. Like they were paying Mel Tucker elite of elite money, even if he wasn't that coach. Michigan State's a program that has like high expectations, and Jonathan Smith seems like he's a big time coach. And I think Michigan State has a higher ceiling than Oregon State probably ever had.
Championship's high. You know what's funny is I like Jonathan Smith. I
compete for Big Ten titles. Let's start with that.
Okay, I didn't know what you meant there. Because I was like, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But I like the optimism in East Lansing. I
think it's the highest upside of all these coaching hires that have been made to this point. I think it's like the most high profile, in my opinion.
Really? Because I think it's Elko. He's putting together a great staff. I love the Colin Klein OC edition, pulling him from Kansas State, his alma mater. I think he's put together a really good staff. He had a big pool of money to put together a good staff. A lot of guys in the portal in and out, but like they just needed, I don't want to say an adult because that's dismissive of Jimbo and everything else. It's not that. It's just they got a guy that I think his floor is so high. And I think he nailed the OC hire. Like Colin Klein has been an offensive magician at Kansas State, doing a lot with less. He'll be able to do a lot with more in Texas A&M. I don't know. To me, I think Elko is the best upside play just because the talent's going to be there. The resources are there. They just needed like a good modern college football coach who can raise the floor and just, get you settled with Texas and company coming in the SEC. I think Elko is, it obviously was a weird scenario with Stoops.
There's an asterisk. There's an asterisk next to Elko because why? Because why didn't you bring in Mark Stoops? Like you guys are so against Mark Stoops, and you brought in a Mark Stoops with less experience. Like maybe he'll be as good as Mark Stoops. It's like that Family Guy, like the boat or the mystery box. Like we could have the mystery box. It could even be a boat. Like it's that if at best case scenario, Mike Elko is as good of a coach as Mark Stoops. Not best case scenario. Obviously, you could be better than Mark Stoops, but they seem like guys of the same type of mold. And he's gotten a program that's not a college football program. Essentially, they're not a football school at Kentucky. And obviously, Elko was doing that at Duke for 2 years. And like, what did they win? 7 games this year? Like, obviously, they had the injury with Riley Leonard, but like they weren't amazing. Like, Kentucky has been they've gotten so good that they've started to get disrespected for not being a true contender. It's like, that's where we're at with Kentucky football. That's like, oh yeah, they're not legit. They're just going to win like 7 or 8 games. It's like, yeah, 7 or 8 games at Kentucky. Like, so that's the only reason with how weird all the Mark Stoops stuff was to go with it. That's why that is an asterisk for me next to Elko hire. But yeah, I mean, I think they did find a good guy.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's a wait and see. And Cignetti, man, he just wins wherever he goes. I like that call because he's 119-35 as a head coach. He was actually on Nick Saban's inaugural Alabama staff in 2007. He was there for 4 years, wide receiver coach, and run it. I don't know what RC is. What would RC be?
What is it? A recruiting coordinator?
Maybe. Yeah, I guess maybe that's what it is. But
you wouldn't call it a receiver coach, right? You would.
Yeah, you would be just WR.
Wide
I don't know
receiver.
what RC is. 11-1 this past year, 8-3 in year one. James Madison 52-9 total as a head coach. Like 52-9, man. Like I didn't think Indiana could pull that good of a coach. And it's a tough job. I mean, is that the toughest job in the Big Ten? You can make the case. I mean, it's a basketball school, not a lot of talent there. Fans like just
Northwestern seems worse.
I don't know. Northwestern's had some more success. Northwestern's been right there in the Big Ten title games.
They've had Big Ten West success. Like Indiana's just been taking it in the East. Like we'll see what happens with these no divisions. Like Indiana, they're gonna be like, guys, we've been telling you this is some bullshit we've had to play every year. So, but yeah, I think people get too caught up on like, oh, you're Indiana, you should hire like a 60-year-old coach that's been around the block and like can get you guys back. You don't want to just hire some guy that's going to get poached by another school. It's like, hell yeah, you do. Like if your coaches are getting poached by big time programs, like you're doing something right. So it's like, look at the Cincinnati Bearcats. Like every coach they gets poached into a big time job. Like that means you're doing something right.
No, I don't disagree. Matt Green. Also, let me throw one more out just because it happened and it under the radar. Bronco Mendenhall getting the New Mexico job. Love that. Like him popping back in. The dude just won games. That's a really tough job in FBS, one of the worst. No one's really had success since Bob Davie. I don't know what he did to make that work. I guess this cool little, he didn't run the triple, but he ran something close. That was kind of cool. So I don't know what Broncos got.
New Mexico was always better than New Mexico State back in the day, though, right? Like
Brian Urlacher, Terrence Mathis. There were some dudes.
Urlacher was the only thing I had. I don't think I knew Terrence Mathis was New Mexico. I didn't know that. It's a nice pull right there.
I got you. Those are the only two.
I remember I got real upset at a sleepover when I was younger because a friend of mine traded me a bogus signed Terrence Mathis card that he that I think it's just like his sister signed or something. I remember it was a whole thing. It was hilarious.
Wow. Okay.
It's a throwback. We loved collecting the cards back in the day. That was where it's at. Game jerseys and autographed cards and stuff. I guess people still do it. I haven't been in the game for a while.
I never was a card guy. Just never really moved the needle for me.
Yeah, I would say like 8 years old to like 12 years old. I was super into it. It was a small window.
I like the pencils. I like the NBA team pencils and stuff. Missed those.
Oh yeah, I had those.
I collected those.
Sure.
Those were my jam. School. I loved a lot of good sports pencils. God, that's the nerdiest thing I've said on this podcast in a while. The most interesting portal name is who for you, Matt Green? A lot of guys to choose from here.
There's so many guys in the portal. Obviously, I mean Walter Nolan. I mean that's probably the biggest name in the portal right now. I feel like it's not fair, but I definitely, with what all the stuff A&M's got going on, like there's some logical reasons, like guys are just getting out of there. But it feels like when position players transfer, there's just not, it doesn't feel like we're not playing Madden. We're not playing NCAA where it's like, oh, we can just go add an 87 overall onto our roster. We're going to be better. It's like, it feels like, oh, maybe there's a reason this guy didn't work out. Like Bear Alexander, it's like, oh, we got a defensive tackle transferring from Georgia. Like, how good is this guy? And he was good, but there was times that you saw like, maybe this guy isn't like superstar level. Maybe that's why he wanted to go to USC, cash in on the NIL. But so I have a little bit of hesitation, but we've also seen like some receivers come in and just ball out. Like, so Rocket Sanders is a huge one to me that like this past year for him, it just never really got going, had some injury issues and everything. But I mean, this guy is potentially the best running back in the SEC, I think, if he's healthy a year ago. So he's an interesting one to me. But in terms of like how big of an impact they could have on like the 2024 season, I think Riley Leonard's got to be up there with the most interesting ones to me. Like maybe Dylan Gabriel, like just someone that like is a quarterback away from winning a college football playoff, from getting to the playoff or winning a national championship. Like it feels like some of those experienced quarterbacks can come in and maybe be the cherry on top that somebody needs.
The thing though about the quarterback group, I don't think anybody moves the needle. I think we're over. Look, I love Hendon. Hendon's my dude. Really, really enjoyed watching Hendon Hooker play football at the University of Tennessee. That being said, I think everyone just thinks that there's a Joe Burrow in all of these classes and all these transfer portal classes. And you look at it, look at this CFP right here, right? Jalen Milroe, homegrown. Carson Beck this year, homegrown. Michigan,
Michigan. Okay. I'm thinking Michael Penix Jr.
Michael Penix Jr. No. Quinn Ewers, we're not counting the Ohio State thing. He's not a transfer. No, because he was a senior in high school when he was there. I don't call that a transfer. Like, the dude was literally a senior in high school at Ohio State. I'm not calling that a transfer. That was I don't even know what I want to call that, but I'm not calling Quinn Ewers a transfer to the University of Texas. That being said, look at last year. Max Duggan, homegrown. Stetson Bennett, homegrown.
He was also a transfer,
JUCO, but he started at Georgia. He doesn't count. Like that's not what it means.
Yeah.
And Ohio State, CJ Stroud, homegrown. Who am I missing? Was that it? JJ
McCarthy.
Yeah, same thing. But I was going through it the other day where I'm like, it's just the majority of these guys the teams that really win. You look at the best in college football this year and the best teams altogether. Jordan Travis, homegrown guy. Bo Nix, obviously a transfer.
Jordan Travis was a transfer.
Was he?
Yeah.
Where did he transfer from? Did I completely miss this?
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely somewhere, but I mean, he's been.
No, I'm looking at it right now. He never transferred.
Yeah, he was at Louisville his freshman year.
Was he really?
I knew he was because I've heard people say that so many times, but I don't remember him, obviously.
I have a total blind spot for this.
I mean, he's been there for 5 years. So
okay, that must be what it is. Yeah.
He's basically a Florida State homegrown, but he was a Louisville transfer.
No, but it doesn't count because he was there a year. I'm looking at this. I have no recollection. They don't even mention it on broadcast that he was a I have no recollection.
I think that's the only reason I've heard it, because I've heard the stat said more than I actually remembered it myself.
See, if he played in the AC title game, we would have heard that a lot because that's
true.
That game. But I don't know.
Jake Fromm played in the Lily World Series.
I didn't hear that.
Most people don't know that.
Matt Stafford, Clayton Kershaw, good friends. Yeah, I don't know. I think the best way of going about quarterback is developing your own guys. Like, I think it's good to have stopgaps. I think a lot of these transfer guys are nice stopgaps while you get ready for the next guy. But it's a better path to long-term sustainability in the sport when you're not having to dip into the portal for transfer guys. And I just think most of these guys are game manager, not needle movers. Like DJ Uiagalelei doesn't move the needle for anybody. But
that applies to every position. It's a more sustainable model to recruit high school kids and develop them and be in your system. But it's hard to do because guys are transferring so much. So obviously everyone wants to do that, but quarterback by far has been the most impactful transfer position. Like, you've seen a lot of teams, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, like we're talking about, Jalen Hurts. Like, you've seen a lot of teams dip in for one guy for 1 year. Notre Dame, your boy that I'm blanking on his name right now.
Riley Leonard or Sam Hartman?
Sam Hartman. Like, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks transfer to places and still have success. So I think of all the positions, that just seems like the one. Like how NFL teams do, like the Colts are a quarterback away, so they go out and try to get a Phillip Rivers or something, like just a veteran that's got some eligibility left. Like, so I think I'm shocked at the portal options I'm seeing for like DJ Uiagalelei. Like, I'm like, are you better than Oregon State? Like, I'm not. I'm not really sure where you're going, but I don't know. I've seen some big names out there, but I don't know. I think there's definitely some guys. Dylan Gabriel is one of those guys that I still don't know how good he is. I feel like he is a good player, but it feels like there's something missing. Like, I don't know if you can win a national championship with him, but if what's stopping if you're some Iowa or someone that just has been awful offensively from just going out and getting one of these big time quarterbacks? I guess they don't want to come to Iowa. I guess that's the problem.
Well, Cade's back, so he's running it back for one more year.
Like I said, you need a big time quarterback when they can play, that can actually have a good offense.
Matt Green, final one here, and we wrap up here on tonight's show. SEC coach on the hottest of seats heading into next year. Last burning question tonight for you. Who do you think it is?
So what you don't want to hear is that Josh Heupel is actually 4th on this list. 4th. He's under a lot of pressure. His seat's not hot yet, but if you go through the SEC right now, there's not many hot seats. There's a lot of like first and second year guys in this conference right now, and then there's just some established guys like Kirby and Saban and Stoops. But right now, I think technically number one is Sam Pittman, but I think my actual number one is Billy Napier, because I think it's completely different. So the top 3 I have is Napier, Pittman, and Shane Beamer, but it's just completely different because Beamer and Pittman go 7-5 next year. They're good. Like, everything's fine. We're going to a bowl game. Napier goes 7-5. I'm not sure they're okay with that. Like, I think at Florida, like, maybe with that schedule they have a year from now, because I mean, man, at a conference, they're going through the Sunshine State at a conference next year with Miami, Florida State, and UCF. And then everyone they're going to get in the SEC. So that schedule is going to be brutal for Florida. Maybe they might be logical enough to be like, we can't just be firing a coach every like 3 years. Like, this is just not a good look, even though we've kind of done that for the past decade. But I think maybe a bowl game is like, okay, we're seeing some progress. Like, after 2 straight seasons of missing a bowl. Wait, no, 3 straight seasons of missing a bowl game, right? But this is just the second one for Napier. So if Napier misses a bowl game for the 3rd straight year, like, he's done, in my opinion. And I think it's going to be difficult for them to make a bowl game next year. And if they might not be happy with like 7-5 or 6-6, like I said. So I think Napier's seat for like actually seeing tangible results is the hottest. But Sam Pittman feels like the closest to actually being fired right now.
I think it's Napier. I think Sam Pittman, is probably number 2 for me, but I think the Petrino return, I'm buying some stock there. We'll see what happens with KJ Jefferson and company, but I don't know. I'm just buying
in the portal, right?
Yeah.
I guess we don't know if he's gone, but
right. So we'll see. I mean, I saw like Will Rogers got the crystal ball to Washington, by the way, as a portal guy next year. And Kalen DeBoer's offense, Will Rogers, I might buy some stock there. I might buy some intriguing stock with him there.
Seems like Washington might could do better than that.
I don't know. I mean, that's off-season talk. Off-season talk in terms of Washington and what's going to happen there. I think it's Napier. Like, it's just, you can't go 3 straight losing seasons at Florida. With the talent, with the classes he's signing, and with the history and everything else, the SEC's too competitive. Florida's still too good of a job, because we talk about it. Like, it shouldn't be this hard. Florida makes it so much harder than it should be to win there consistently. And I think Florida can always do better. Like, I understand their issues. Dan Mullen is kind of hilarious about it. Shout out to my guy, Dan. But look,
your guy, Dan? That's your boy?
Dan. Dan Mullen's awesome. He has a permanent spot here. I'm going to get Dan on soon, because like anything, Dan Mullen's my dude. I just like real guys who just, look, man, he's like, I'm good on the recruiting front. Like, and then I'm also going to tweet about like, I like Syracuse. They're cool, but I'm not going.
I like him if he's not a college football coach.
I mean, he's still one of the,
recruiting's kind of a big deal.
Top 10, top 15. He's somewhere in that range. A lot of programs would love to have a Dan Mullen right now.
If you're saying if he was coaching right now, he'd be a top 10 or top 15 coach in college football?
Yeah, when you're a top 3 offensive mind in the sport. Yeah, of course.
What?
Yeah.
No.
You got Mississippi State to the number 1 overall CFP ranking.
How long are we going to milk that for?
I mean, he could milk that forever. Like, we'll never see it again, Matt Green. We'll never see it again.
All right. I don't know about top 10, top 15. I think he'd be coaching if that were the case. I think recruiting is like half of a college football coach's job.
I don't disagree that would have to change a little bit, but also, could he get another program like Mississippi State to a top 3, top 5 record and kind of still be the same dude? Yeah.
If he hired a general manager on his staff, that it was his job to accumulate talent in the portal and like shit like that. There could be a place like if we were talking about him going to Syracuse. We didn't even talk about Fran Brown getting that job from Syracuse. I was just saying in our conversation with
big
the
hire too. Stole the defensive line coach from A&M as their DC. Like he's beefing up. Good staff for him.
For sure. So Mullen would have to go some super low profile kind of, we'll take whatever sort of success you can give us, like type of job. But yeah, I mean, I'm not calling him a top 10, top 15 head coach. What are you talking about over there, sir?
No, 100%.
You're just trying to get this guy on the pod. I respect it.
Top 3 offensive mind in the sport. Top 3 offensive mind. Got to have him in there. It's him.
That's a big part of it. Lincoln Riley's a damn good offensive mind, and we've seen there's a lot more that goes to being a college football coach than being an offensive mind.
Good hire though. Stole his rival, crosstown rival, Lynn, as his new DC going next year. Wasn't the boldest hire, but UCLA's defense was good this year. I think that was a sneaky good hire for Lincoln Riley.
But we were talking about Florida, and I think
it's Napier. Look at the schedule. I was just going to
point out the schedule. The home games are Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, and A&M, and then on the road, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, and Mississippi State. That's brutal. On top of at Florida State at a conference, and then I don't know where the Miami game is, but I think wherever the Miami game is, there's going to be more Florida fans than Miami fans there.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Well, that's all I've got, Matt Green. Fun burning questions show. I thought this would be a nice little break from the preview shows and all that we've been doing over the course of this college football season. We'll have some bowl talk going into next week. Maybe on Saturday night we'll come up with some other cool stuff.
Yeah, still got some time to get to all the playoff talk and all of that. Also, Heisman is this week. Is it Jaden Daniels? No question.
I wouldn't say no question. I think it should be Jaden Daniels. But I wouldn't say no question.
It should be one of the more lopsided Heisman votes of all time, in my opinion.
Also, have you checked the betting odds recently?
No. I have a grinds my gears here for you.
Okay. Jaden Daniels is now a heavy favorite. Michael Penix is number 2. Yeah. Okay.
Invite like 5 people every time. What are we doing? Just who cares how many guys have a realistic shot to win? Sometimes it's 3 they invite. Sometimes it's 4. Just invite 5 every time. Just give these college dudes some love for you finished 5th in the Heisman, so you were at the ceremony. That's a grinds my gears for you. I was a little surprised Marvin Harrison Jr. was a finalist because his stats were good, but they weren't the best receiver stats. Kind of how Devontae Smith was, just blowing everyone else's stats away that year. But I think everyone knows he's a baller, so no one's gonna hate on him being a finalist. But I thought that when I saw 4, because what was it? Was it only 3 last year? Or was it 4? I want to say it was 4 last year,
right? I think it was 4.
Because it was the 3 guys, the 3 quarterbacks that were going to be in the playoff. It was Stetson, Stroud, and Duggan. Oh, and then Caleb Williams won it. Yeah, so it was 4 last year too. So I don't know. It's weird to me how they kind of changed that number up. But yeah, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, great seasons. But Jaden Daniels feels like it feels like one of the easier decisions we've had in a few years.
I like it. Matt Green, that's all I've got, sir. And more shows as the weeks go on. College football coverage nonstop here on the program. But thank you as always, my friend. And I'll talk to you very soon.